any second now. And that any second now is this second now. Welcome, everybody. Class is in session for the September Accademia Giallo. And we are here to talk about a movie from 1969, directed by Umberto Lenzi, called So Sweet, ... So Perverse. A movie that I think, if nothing else, and I ended up loving this film, but it proved to me why people who love movies and appreciate film should never give up on any movie. You know, you hear people like, oh, I walked out, or I turned this off after 15 minutes because it wasn't doing anything. This is a 90-minute film, roughly, and I was ready to jump out of the proverbial car up until just about the hour mark.
Oh, wow.
And then this movie completely turned around and made me fall in love with it. Yeah, we're going to get into it. This is another one of those, is it really a Giallo film? And I think it is, because the last half hour is so is so Giallo. But it's definitely a different film than many that we've talked about on this show. Before we get into it, though, I am, of course, Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. I have John Kitley of Kitley's Crypt and the Discover the Horror podcast, which just celebrated 50 episodes. How's that feel, sir?
Glad to be done with it.
That's about right.
Yeah. It was our first live one, so it went off really well. So,
and oh my gosh, okay,
Yes.
Inside joke time. I think. Wait, Kitley, did you win this one?
He was saying 204 to 206,
and it's 204.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Bryan,
thank you, Bryan.
Contestant. Yep.
I win.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. I'm happy to provide such entertainment, you know.
We love you, Bryan. And let's see. So we're doing the introductions. We got Aaron Christensen of Horror 101 with Dr. AC, and once again sliding into class just after the bell-ish is Bryan Martinez of the Giallo Room. How you doing, sir? Good. All right.
Been better, been worse. All good.
Okay. Well,
are you feeling sweet? Are you feeling perverse?
Always.
Can you guys hear me?
Are you feeling anything?
Yeah,
you're locking up.
Yeah, you're a little frozen there, Bryan. I don't know if you want to come back or try it again or whatever, but we'll keep going. AC, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
All right. Well, as always, and also folks who are joining us live or in the comments, joining us live and in the comments, feel free to leave a comment. Join in the discussion as we get this class underway. We got a few people watching, including, I'm going to try and stay on top of these this time. We have Jonas Hallberg joining us once again. Hi from Sweden.
Wow.
Hi,
it's a big
Jonas.
Sweden day.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in. We'll keep up with comments. If anyone wants to drop a super chat, that's fine. It's not obligated by any means. We want to keep the conversation live and fresh, and whatever you thought of this film or other Lenzi movies, just drop it all in the chat, or of course react to what we're talking about here in class. So and Bryan, it looks like I don't know what you did, but you look like you're more live and not as choppy. What?
Good.
Wow.
Oh, you guys can hear me and all that now?
Oh yeah, and you're no longer pixelated, so this is a good start.
Cool. Real quick, I just want to say hi to Jonas Hallberg. I know him from the Giallo Room days. So
wonderful.
What's up, homie?
Awesome. All right, and I do want to mention before we get started, this is an Umberto Lenzi film that we were discussing, which was there is a book about it called "Make Them Die Slowly," which came out earlier this year, written by a friend of the show and former guest and hopefully future guest Troy Howarth. We didn't get a chance to coordinate to even ask him to be on this episode, but we'll have to do a Lenzi in the future to get him back on here. But yeah, definitely check that out. It's the ultimate Lenzi resource. But let's get into this movie. As we always do, I want to kind of go around the room and see kind of people's first experiences with this movie. What did you think about it the first time you watched it? My first time watching it was a bit last night and then this morning. And as I already kind of teased my reaction to it, but AC, what do you make of So Sweet, So Perverse?
This was the first time I had seen it, and it is included on this Lenzi Baker box set that came out from Severn a couple years back, and it's a collaboration between Carol Baker and Umberto Lenzi, the 4 giallos that they did together. And I really dug this one. Kind of like you, I was kind of like, where is this going? Is it going anywhere? And then it really goes somewhere. And it keeps you guessing in a way that, some of the others, and it feels like it kind of plays fair in that regard, in that it isn't some like wackadoo, oh, those darn kids from next door. It's like, no, it's been there, and it's kind of what you thought it might be all along. And yet, you go like, well, it can't be that. So I dug it.
Awesome. Kitley, how about you?
I honestly don't remember the first time I had seen it some time ago, but at the Music Box back in February, they showed this part of their Giallo. Was it? No, I'm sorry, in January, their Giallo January or whatever. They screened that. So I got to see it on the big screen. I would probably say this is my favorite Lenzi film.
Oh, wow.
Really?
I love the cast. It doesn't hurt that you have Erica Blanc and Helga Linnea and Carol Baker in it. So it's a great cast. I would say it is a giallo, but it's very different because I think and that's the thing I like about it. It's a really well written mystery thriller that you kind of think you know what the ending is, but up until the very end, you're not really sure because it could go left at any time.
Yes. And this is one of the lowest body count Jolly that we've watched for sure. But yeah, we'll talk about how it fits into the genre as we go along here. Jonas also asked, is the box's forgotten Jolly worth getting?
The forgotten ones, they're hit or miss. Sorry, I thought he meant the Carol Baker.
Yeah,
one.
this box set I would say is worth getting. I have not seen the forgotten Jolly.
The Vinegar Syndrome ones.
Right.
Those are like John said, they're just hit or miss. Like if you're a huge super fan and you have the budget, like add it to the collection.
But they've also been releasing them in the cases only, so you don't have to spend the extra money for the boxes.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you spend extra money for those gorgeous boxes, man? Those are beautiful.
That's true.
I thought we were talking about the movie. I'm sorry.
Oh, wow. No, AC, I was going to mention the box that you held up. Is that like a nice pressed cardboard or something?
That's what I'm saying. It's look at the slidable top.
Yeah, Severn's releases are always really, really solid. So I don't have the Vinegar Syndrome one, but this one's great, and I was really pleased to add it to the collection. I've been very happy with everything I've seen so far.
Sweet. And Perverse. Okay, Bryan, so that leaves you. Tell us about your reaction to this movie and your experience with it.
I don't have too much experience with this film. Like, sadly, you guys probably love this film way more than I do. I will say I watched it, if I can say, like on live television or whatever.
As long as there's nothing illegal about the circumstances under which you watch the movie.
No, because now everything is legal in Illinois, so it's all good. But I watched this inebriated last night, and I found myself going back. Like, I think it's one of Lenzi's most beautifully directed films. Like, I'll give him that. But when you have like the span of coming from, the So Sweet, So Perverse, Orgasmo years into Eyeball, and then you see like all the different pathways that he enters as a film director, I just think it's such an advanced leap. From here to here, I tend to drift a little bit more towards the Spasmo Eyeball days in terms of Lenzi's catalog. So that's where I'm coming from. But I will say, watching this one, like there's a scene. Okay, I'll give you this example. There's a scene in this movie where, by the way, I think I mentioned in a previous episode that this has an amazing beach scene or whatever. I thought for whatever reason I was thinking So Sweet So Dead.
I was thinking of a different
yeah, because the beach scene in this one is no bueno. But so from that transition, so when she's getting traumatized on the beach, and then like there's a close-up of her face, and then there's like a glass covering her like right eye, obscuring everything. And then, like, watching it for the first time, you almost get the sense of like, oh, like somebody's pouring her like a shot of J&B after this crazy experience. But as we pan out and see where she's at and like her environment, and there's a cross on the wall and there's nurses all around, it's like, wow, like you get the full balance of the story, the gist of like her experience and things like that, you know. So I paused, like I went back and I rewound it, watched it again, and I was like, oh man, that's such a beautiful way of storytelling. You know, as like somebody that's known for like eyeball primarily, when you go back and watch some of these films, it's like, wow, like he's a masterclass filmmaker, you know, like just the opening shot of Jean riding in this badass car, and then like that crazy music going on in the background. You almost get the sense that like a Quentin Tarantino watched this movie and like brought elements of it into his like, you know, specific recipe or whatever. It's just that rich in terms of filmmaking. I even like that they use the song throughout the film. Like it's kind of funny. But like as like, you know, somebody that loves fucking eyeball, that sounded weird. I love the hell out of eyeball. And then going back and watching this movie, I fell asleep to this movie watching it last night. But I'll say it in the loveliest ways. Like I fell asleep like it was embracing me. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, wrapped in a warm Lenzi blanket.
Yes. It's just that soothing. It's not like, you know, super high on the body counts. I think it's got like a shot of boobies in the very beginning or whatever. But that's about it. So if you're looking for something that's like, you know, fuel, like super high octane Giallo, like, you know, crazy sleazy, crazy everything, this is probably not your cup of tea. But as you fine gentlemen said, it is a lovely movie, albeit lack of the usual Giallo elements. So
Yeah, and there are some Giallo elements sprinkled throughout. There's sort of a blackout scene, you know, cutting electricity and the leather gloved hands going to the switch box and all that stuff. But
yeah,
you know,
like,
it's oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Like there's a scene early on where Jean is walking those business guys through his little medical facility or whatever the hell it is. There's a shot of, well, like he's never brought up again or whatever, but there's a dude that like is part of the group. He's bald. He's like super white. He's got these glasses on. He's carrying a suitcase, like a briefcase, and then the other hand is like wrapped in a leather glove, but this one is naked. So I was like watching this, you know, like this is the first time I watched it, watching us feeling like that guy was gonna like be the guy that shows up on the rooftop at the end of the movie or whatever, right. You know. But like, so that's what I'm saying. Like I felt like you're kind of starved for those elements with this movie. However, there's a lot more elements, like in terms of the rich storytelling, in terms of the camera work, the music. Riz Ortolani's soundtrack is beautiful in this film. It's got a lot of that stuff to feed you if you were looking for, you know, eyeball part 2. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it was 1969. This movie
Right.
came out, and I was, you know, let's just kind of start with what this movie is about, like the setup of it. You mentioned there's this guy named Jean, and I kept laughing to myself every time his name was brought up in the movie, because sometimes he was referred to as Jean and sometimes as his full name, Jean Reno, which reminded me of the other French actor from like The Professional.
Yeah.
I would love to see him in this part. That would be totally weird. But no, so he's this rich guy tooling around Paris, you know, some great shots of the city. He's got this little sports car. They keep cutting back to this rifle in the back seat. You're like, is he going to kill someone? Like, what is going on here? It turns out, no, he's just going to, you know, shoot clay pigeons at this estate with a bunch of his, you know, with his wife is there, her best friend, and a bunch of their kind of rich associates, the socialites.
This movie is cheeky as fuck like that. You know what I mean? Like with a rifle in the back seat, it's like, are we up to where we're going with this? You know what I mean? Like, I'll give it that.
And that kind of plays with the perception of reality. Nothing is really as it seems, even up to the very end, where the killer or the mastermind thinks that and I'm dancing around it because I know we're in spoilers, but I don't want to get too far into it right now. They think they've gotten away with it, and then there's sort of one little, like a cutaway and a little piece of dialogue, and like, oh, this story is going to continue for decades and it's going to be a real horror show. I'd love to see what happens next. But so, yeah, Jean is, he's like probably like a 30-year-old kind of playboy guy. He's got a wife that he's not interested in her. She's not interested in him. They live in this, fabulous apartment, and the unit above them, or the top floor, the suite, has been purchased by an American lady played by Carol Baker. Her name's Nicole. Jean's wife, Danielle, he mentions that she's going to be furious because they had planned to buy it and put in a connecting staircase, for ultimate opulence. But so Jean had a key to that floor, which he had before it was rented out, right? At one point, he goes upstairs because he hears some kind of a struggle. He meets Nicole there. I may be jumping around a bit, but
you're doing great.
She has been assaulted at some point by a guy named Klaus, this mysterious guy played by Horst Frank, which is another great name. So many great names in this movie behind the camera and on the page. But he feels like he's coming to her rescue in some sense. And they develop this really twisted romance. And yes, Jean is married, but as we discover, that means nothing at all to him, because before he even gets involved with Nicole, he's with this other person. And she's taught, is it the best friend? I can't remember. Was that the one that he was sleeping with initially?
It's one of the
party
wives at the gun club.
Yeah.
It's one of the wives there.
But it was it.
But it's not Helga Linné.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is Helga Linné because because then he comes home to Erica Blanc.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's all this talk about like they're in bed together and they're talking about each other's spouses and all this stuff, but they don't really care. And as the movie continues on, like the first 20 minutes, I'm wondering where the horror, the suspense is going to come in, but it doesn't really bother me because it feels like a 1969 Parisian version of a Bret Easton Ellis novel. These rich people who have everything except for fulfilling love lives, and what are they getting up to? They're bored, so they can just resort to leisurely rich activities and bonking each other's spouses. But it turns out that Klaus has a big part in Nicole's life. They've known each other for, it sounds like, pretty much their whole lives. And he's been this abusive, sexually assaulting, figure in her life, but she can't seem to get away. And she's very timid, very meek. She seems like she wants to be rescued by this guy, Jean. And he's falling so head over heels with her that he's talking about, well, I'm going to leave my wife. And she's like, you can't. And he said, well, we've been married together 3 years. So I think he said, I've fulfilled my moral obligation to this situation. What a scumbag.
By the way, like, I'd like to just mention a couple of his lines early on in the film.
Please.
He says, you're not jealous, you're just bitchy.
Yep.
Which I think is just.
Yep.
I'd like to have either one of us try that at one point in the next week or two and see how that.
It's so funny watching these relics and seeing shit like this, and just like, wow.
Well, because he has that. He also has that comment of like, we've been married for 3 years, but we've only been man and wife for 2.
Yeah.
And there's therefore I have no moral consequence. It's like, well, we're not having sex, so clearly it's fine for me to have sex with somebody else.
Well, according to that one, he says, what do you expect when I can't even get a slice of cake at my own house?
Oh man. So
I wrote that down too. There were several record scratch moments where I had to pause the video and be like, I got to write that down. I can't
don't
believe
try
it.
this at home, folks. Do not use these lines.
Totally different time. Even though, like, who said shit like that regardless of time or whatever?
Yeah.
Well, but again, that's the kind of stuff that you would see in a Bret Easton Ellis novel. These people who are so masters of their own universes that they just don't care and they treat each other like garbage. And that's one of the things that makes it so compelling. It's not right by any stretch of the word, but it is fascinating, I think, partially because we, as I'm assuming, upstanding, citizens who love our respective others, would never think about saying that kind of stuff. But things get really complicated right again at the hour mark, where there's Nicole is at home, Danielle is downstairs, the lights go out, right, and Jean comes to the rescue because Klaus is in the room. Klaus attacks. There's this big fight between Klaus and John that goes out, to the balcony. Danielle goes upstairs, and it's so fascinating, the dynamic here, because it makes sense at the end of the movie. But in the moment, I'm like, okay, so Danielle is standing there next to her husband's mistress, watching her husband be brutally attacked. And I think at that point, Klaus had pulled out the knife, and she's not moving. She's barely reacting. She's not calling the cops. She's certainly not getting involved. She's just watching. I'm thinking, is this a commentary on their marriage that she's just like, well, I'm just going to see how this plays out. And Jean gets stabbed to death, horribly murdered. We see the knife coming up from behind like a couch further out in the balcony, goes up and down. It keeps coming up bloodier and bloodier. And then Klaus hoists the body over his shoulders to go dispose of it. And there's the big plan is to make it look like a car accident. Sure enough, the next day there's a big car wreck. It's been torched. Jean's body is taken to the morgue. Danielle has to go identify it. It's a charred wreck. She's distraught. She goes back to her apartment, and guess who's there? It's Nicole, acting in a way that we had never even been clued into a possibility of her acting. She's gone from the meek, like, oh, I'm so traumatized by my past, I need you to protect me and save me, to basically Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct, like this cutthroat femme fatale. And it's one of the best, like, I swear to God, she changed physical appearance, at least in my mind's eye, from one type of person to the next. And it was a stunning transformation.
See, I just want to, like, that's probably where I had my issue with this film the most is, like, I know you guys, like, I feel like I just watched a whole different movie. Because I've never been on the Carol Baker bus. I think
neither have I, because I didn't know who she was.
I don't know. I feel like her performance is just really cardboard.
Well, I don't know how much of that has to do with the vocal track, because her lines are delivered very flat.
Yes.
And I'm guessing that's Carol Baker on the audio track, but I can't swear to it. Also, there's just that to me, because I see what you're saying there, Brian. Like she comes off kind of like flat, and but I think what Ian's talking about in terms of like her dynamics, like I think like she's giving a good performance, but I don't feel like the lines match what's happening physically.
Good point.
Whereas Erica Blanc is like just letting it all hang out, both vocally and physically.
Right.
And she's a character who, in the beginning, we're talking about the Danielle character, Jean's wife. In the beginning of the film, she is I think both of the main women in this film come off as kind of flat in some way. I think Nicole, we're led to believe, is so traumatized by her experience with Klaus that she's emotionally dead inside and very guarded. She doesn't want to let someone else get attached to her or become attached to someone else because it could turn out to be another Klaus. And I think Danielle is just so probably disillusioned and heartbroken on some level of being married to this, philanderer and this jerk for 3 years. God knows how long they'd been together before that, really, that she's just kind of, flat again. But in that last half hour, both of these characters come out of their shells, and Danielle is, hysterical and being gaslit to the ends of the earth by the end of this film. I felt really bad for her in a way that I didn't think, again, I would be capable of feeling anything for this character when she's introduced.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I got nothing.
All right, then I'll go.
Yeah,
jump in, John.
I don't think one of the things that I like about this is because they allude that Jean is possibly not dead, because it is a charred body and they just found a ring. So that was the part that I liked at the end, going, because all of a sudden Daniela starts getting messages, and is it him or is it another plot going? And that's one of the things that I really like about this plot line, is because there is no one path. There's different things. And technically at the end of the movie, are we really sure he's dead?
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, no, I mean, because all we have is that charred body. And as they say, it could be anybody.
And, we know how police are in these films. That guy wasn't going to figure this shit out. So did Jean tip the police guy off saying, hey, I'm not dead. They tried to frame or they tried to murder me. You might want to get on that plane.
I
And
like that.
that's my question. Like, what in that reality, which I'm not disputing, but I don't think there's evidence for it. But I also don't think there's not. Like,
That's
is
what I
it
mean.
possible? Is it possible? Like, what do you imagine his character did after he escaped that encounter with Klaus, and I guess allowed it to appear that his body was discovered and he's presumed dead? Did he just not go back and engage because he was afraid of, once he realized Klaus and Nicole and possibly even Danielle were in on it? Is he on the run? Like, what do you think he's doing?
He got the hell out of Dodge. I mean, he had
Trying to kill
Klaus
me.
after him. He's got 2 women that he's been sleeping with.
He's got
out to
all the
get 'em.
money in the world, you know.
No,
Not
well,
anymore.
Not,
Not
really,
anymore.
Not really.
Well, yeah, but
Unless he had already
maybe
taken some.
Yeah, like offshore accounts or whatever.
But yeah, he got the hell out of danger.
I
That's
didn't
what he
think
did.
too deeply into this movie. Like you guys are writing your fan fiction in the background. You know?
Well, here's a question: like, do we think Danielle was also having affairs? Because I think she says something to the effect of like, when everybody's gone, that's when I feel like I'm myself, and when you're here, I'm not.
She was having an affair with Nicole.
Well, I know. Well, certainly that was not above board with Jean.
But I think Nicole started that as this whole scheme.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the thing, and again, we have got the spoiler tag on, so if you haven't watched this movie, I certainly recommend that you seek it out. But one of the things I liked about, and we've talked about a couple other films on this show that are from like the 60s or the 70s that deal with topics that, were not mainstream in the States, certainly at this time. But, the idea of, I don't think they actually, the two, Nicole and Danielle, they wake up, together, or at least at one point, Danielle wakes up and you can see the imprint in the bed. So Nicole has been there. They have slept together. Right. I don't recall, was there any embrace? They never mentioned like lesbianism or anything like that, but it is clear that they were having a relationship.
Yes. Yeah, I'd say that's certainly explicit, even though we don't see anything displayed in that regard.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is a great added dimension to this. Danielle is not just the bored, cheated on housewife. She feels like she can't be herself because she's surrounded by these other people that she feels wouldn't, understand or accept her. In fact, all manner of, I guess, deviant sex is kind of treated as something to be, indulged in and, kind of laughed at and not taken seriously. But it's certainly not something that, polite society is going to welcome in. There's a kind of a chilling scene at a party where they get this, did she even have a name? The lady, the black girl,
exotic dancer.
Yeah, the exact dancer who's basically, uses a prop. She's like, I'm going to get naked and, they're going to have people come and I'm going to throw off my pasties and the two people that catch have to sleep together or kiss. Because at one point, I think someone says, we're far more conservative than that, Missy. And she's like, okay, fine, just make out for a minute. I'm like, what's going on here? But yeah, that idea of the love that can't express itself, I think it's very sweet, but it's been perverted, as the title suggests, by this opportunist couple of Klaus and Nicole. And so by the end, you realize that Danielle has been totally screwed out of everything. And even her death, she doesn't have the dignity of, it's made to look like a suicide based on a lie. It's horrifying.
Can we go back to that party really quick? Because there's that scene where, the black girl is dancing and she, takes her clothes off and she has the butterfly pasties and she passes those off. But then the thing, as you said, that they're supposed to share a 1-minute kiss. And I'm pretty confident that was a 1 minute in real time that we actually saw. And we have a ticking of the clock. And then we have the black lady is slipping colored gels into the light. And
why do they got to be colored gels?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, what is it? Is it a? Oh, whoa! Did you go there, dude?
As the panel's resident Afro-American, I'll allow it.
Jeez. Anyway, but was that some kind of commentary on Italian filmmaking and kind of like the Bava-esque school of throwing these colored gels in just for the heck of it? like, I was like, is Lenzi throwing shade or is he making a commentary? I thought that was kind of fun that we have this extended moment where it is all about the lights changing and this just extended hold on this couple.
Well, this movie was made in '69.
Correct.
And it was produced by the two Martino brothers, right? Sergio Martino and I always forget his name, but his brother.
Luciano.
Yeah, Luciano. And, you know, at that time it was like, you got the Bava films, you got Argento, I think, coming out right around that time. You got...
Argento is still like next year, right? Isn't that his first movie?
Yeah, 70,
but 69 is like when like
he's still like a film critic,
shape form or whatever, you know. You got Fulci's one on top
of the other. Yeah.
You know, you got like stuff happening in terms of that. You almost wonder if like maybe Martino, because Martino played around with a lot of that stuff as well. You know, maybe kind of, I don't know, like this is like all, you know, fantasy playing or whatever, but I just wonder, like, to your to your point, AC, like, because the red gel shows up at that beach scene too, to, I guess, maybe induce some kind of trauma feeling or whatever. So maybe like there was some early play with some of that, you know, look of Giallo, whatever. How it's like, that's another thing about these films too. During this time, it's so interesting to see everything just sort of take shape, you know, into what it ultimately becomes, and it's almost like when you're in a horror circle talking all this conversation and then Giallo comes up, you almost feel like, oh, like that's a perverted, you know, subgenre of horror or whatever. Like, I feel like there's certain elements that just pop into your mind when you say Giallo. You got the black leather gloves, you got the perversity in there, you got all that stuff playing in your mind. So, you know, I don't know. I think 69 isn't so like, you know, you had a lot of stuff going on in the world at that time. By the time you get into 70s, it's almost like nobody gave a fuck anymore, and they just did what they wanted to do finally. But 69, 68, 67, those are those years where they're just like formulating those ideas and playing around with these ideas, but not necessarily like brave enough to do some of the stuff that, you know, like, for example, Argento, when he comes out with Bird with the Crystal Plumage in the next year, like it was like, boom, okay, like the curtain is open, let's go like run and do this stuff, you know.
Well, that's exactly it. Like, go ahead, Ian.
No, please go ahead.
Well, I was
I'm
just
sure
going
you
to
got
say
a more formed point than I do.
I don't know that that's true, but in 1964 we've got Blood and Black Lace,
right?
And it feels like there's a pretty big gap,
right? Exactly.
Until we see another Gialli. Like 69 is kind of when we start seeing them stirring again.
Well,
and then
there's
of course,
ones, right? Like the creamy one, the creamies,
right.
The ones that came out,
the German creamy.
Yeah, like there was stuff going on. I feel like Bava came out with, you know, Blood and Black Lace, and it wasn't probably received as much as he hoped it was, you know, because by then it was like, well, Psycho exists, so why can't we like take it a little further with, you know, all these beautiful colors, but with the same kind of perversion and whatnot, you know, and then it just didn't really like, you know, set like ablaze or whatever. I think, fortunately and unfortunately, because I love Blood and Black Lace so much, and I love Bava's attempts at that stuff at a very early stage. I say unfortunately because by the time Argento comes out with his film, it's like, oh, okay, now it's like it's wide open or whatever. Where it should have been like back then, you know, it should have been. He's the one that should have ushered in all this stuff. But I feel like by the time, you know, socially, politically, all that stuff back in those years, it was just such a different frame of mind compared to like what you can do today. And then like what you can do just 5 years later into the 70s, you know.
I also feel like what Bava does in Blood and Black Lace is such a statement that you couldn't do anything like that without completely seeming like you're trying to rip him off.
Sure,
You couldn't do those colors. You couldn't do that kind of body count because it's so very much him and that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, you know, like we almost had to wait 5 years for anybody to try and do another Gialli.
Unless those color filters was just Lenzi going, yeah, okay, here, look,
here's your filters.
Here's your filters. But I will say that there are several scenes in here that I think the camera work is just stunning.
Yeah.
When Jean is running down the stairs chasing the elevator, and the camera is almost in front of him going around, I think is just brilliant. And there's several scenes where he has two characters in the scene, except one of them is a reflection. So she'll be sitting at the mirror, so you see her in the mirror, and then there's another character there. Or I think when Jean's in the car, you see his face in the rearview mirror, but you see her.
Right.
I mean, he did it. It's multiple times, so it wasn't like just we're going to do this one time. It looks like he deliberately set this up, and I thought that was a really cool way to have two characters in the scene that aren't technically that shouldn't be in the scene or shouldn't see the camera.
And that's what I said earlier. It's like I would go back to this film for that stuff. That stuff is so beautiful and rich. Like if you love just filmmaking in general, like this film is just like, in comparison to like the eyeballs of his career or whatever. It's just so gorgeous looking.
Danielle's dream sequence where she's in the car with Jean and they're speeding through the French countryside, and they're going at one point like over 200 miles an hour, kilometers. I couldn't tell you, but they're going extremely fast, and it's like Raimi's Evil Dead vision, but cranked up to 11. And it looks so dangerous because you realize the only way to really achieve that effect in 1969 is probably to just mount the camera to a car and go for it. And
especially it mounted to a Firebird back in 69.
Well, and that car passes another car going the opposite direction. You see that if you're watching, you see that car shake, as it zooms past. It's great nightmare imagery that we could probably unpack on an entire show. But I do want to go back to that kiss at the party because, again, in the moment you're like, oh, this is cool. You see the person changing out the lenses, which is maybe a cheat for the filmmaker. I don't know, but by the end of the film, when you think back on it, what's going on in that scene? You've got Nicole making out with Jean. It's the mistress who is now Jean is. They so do not care. They are so checked out of that polite society nonsense that they're not worried about, hey, my wife is standing right there. We're just going to make out with each other, completely disrespecting the relationship. They could have said, oh, hey, we caught the pasties, but we're not going to do that. Give it to someone else. They decided to do that in the moment. On top of that, when you look at Danielle watching them as these lenses are changing, you later realize that it's not so much she's disgusted with her husband. It's that in some way she's jealous that A, he's making out with Nicole that she would rather be making out with, and B, to my first point, they're in public. They're being embraced by this debaucherous, elite society, which, she wishes she could be out and free in that same kind of way. So yeah, there's that first hour of the film. I think I said there didn't seem to be a lot going on. There's a lot going on under the hood. It just doesn't get viscerally ramped up until later. But I feel like after the credits start to roll and you think back, what was happening in that first hour, you realize there's like 3 hours worth of theme going on in this 1 hour of like just bored people doing rich people doing bored stuff. I don't know.
I will say that I think Carl, our Frank Horst, like he has such an amazing face. Like he reminds me of who's our lead in how about I just stop talking now? But Ivan? What's Ivan's last name? Rosovich? See, now it's contagious. I apologize.
I know what you're talking about, but I
Razumov.
can't remember.
Ivan Razumov.
Yeah, like he reminded me of him with those strong facial features. And every time he comes on, like he just kind of blows Jean off the map. Like he's just like he's such a physical presence. And I feel that similar that Erica Blanc has a stronger physical presence than Carol Baker as well. I just feel like we see these. It's interesting that like kind of our supporting cast is. Are you just gonna say Rasimov?
Dude, it's so like
you're like so you'll never forget it again. You'll never forget it again.
No, but imagine plugging
your mantra
out of.
It's got Giallo Tourette's.
Right. But instead of Barbara Baker, imagine putting in Barbara Boucher. You know what I mean? Like, I think for me, I'm more of a Barbara Boucher fan. I love her in anything that she's made, specifically in Giallo. But I just think she's got more. She's just more interesting. I think. Not to say like I don't want to diss.
Well,
you know,
Lenzi
Baker
clearly
or
had a
whatever.
thing for Carol Baker because he did
Carol,
4
I think I
films
said
together.
Barbara Baker.
You did, and I'm just going to go right past that.
Don't
Well,
worry,
I think-
Brian. Aaron said Carl instead of Klaus, so we're all good.
That's right. That's right.
I understand where you're coming from, Brian, but I gotta disagree. I think oh my God, am I doing it again? I think the issue is that the Nicole character needs to be kind of, uninteresting, kind of boring, because that's how she seduces Jean into thinking I'm helpless, I'm sexy, but I'm not a sex pot. I need you to come and white knight me, essentially. But I got to ask you guys a question, because I've been thinking about this all day. The beach scene, which we've kind of discussed, the kind of the frenetic editing, that crazy record player swirling around of Nicole's head, not Exorcist style, but and then the red lens at the end as she's running towards us on the beach, and then the two powerful hands come out from either side of the frame. Was that real? Or is that the story she told Jean in order to further draw out his sympathy? Because Klaus is an imposing figure, and he's certainly a murderer, as we saw by the end of the film. But at the very end of the film, when they're on that plane and they're about to make their big escape, he's kind of like crumpled up in the seat next to her. He's very much, hey, you think you've got it, you think you're going to get away with it, but hey, the top cop is sitting, 3 rows behind us. But he's not the domineering.
Is a great ending,
it is. It's perfect. But he's not the domineering, controlling force that we're led to believe throughout the entire film.
I would say he's not the controlling force anymore. And there's a great sense of her realizing that she has power now, that she has the money and she has the goods on him. And the tables have turned. That's what I got. I actually hadn't thought about the fact, because when you're watching that beach scene, you're within the context of she is the person who needs rescuing, not the mastermind. So I hadn't thought about that, but I do get the sense that he is what she says he is, but that now she is on top and she can control the vicious dog.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is because, and maybe I missed something, but I was kind of waiting for a scene, as you mentioned, turning the tables. I never got that. So because we can't trust anything about most of the characters in this movie, I'm wondering if she was in control the entire time. Yes, he's a mad dog and a murderer and probably a rapist, but she had him on a leash, but it was part of their co-conspirator narrative to nab this fortune from Jean that, because no one's going to believe, or it makes a better story to say you've got this domineering monster of a man rather than this, petite young thing who's actually the devil in disguise.
Well, or is it somebody who is being dominated and sees a way out by using him?
And that's my question is that in here? It's something that could be inferred, but I'm just wondering, is there a line of dialogue or a scene where she gets out from under him?
I think right after the death of Jean, where they're all in there and Nicole is kind of hysterical.
There was nothing funny about it, John.
It is so funny when he gets killed. No, he's like the upper hand, but I think there's a moment where she starts to take control of what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And then at the very end on the plane where he's pinching her like, right, I'm in control. And she's like, back off there, dude.
Yeah.
I'm the one that's doing this. So like to Aaron's point, I think he thought he was in control the whole time, but he probably really wasn't.
See, my counter to that is I think he got out from underneath her on that airplane. When she's like, look, I've got all the money. I'm in control here. You're working for me. And he took almost this sense of glee of like, well, yeah, but you know what? The top cop is sitting right behind us and you're never going to have a moment's peace. And he's kind of like smiling to himself about it. I feel like that's the he's the Renfield almost getting one over on Dracula.
It felt like a wry comment. I didn't feel like he was like I felt like he's like, we're both in this together. You know, you got the goods on me, but the cop is like going to be chasing us the rest of our lives.
Then again,
and
he went to sleep.
That may be true. Yes, but that could also, he went to sleep.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, there's the cop.
But it may
kind
be
of like what I did watching this movie.
You know what? No, but again, we're in the land of speculation here, which I think is great because I think it speaks to the power of this story. But I'm thinking it could be this is the only time. Yes, he realizes that they're both kind of screwed, but it may be the one time when he has found her to be actually vulnerable in any of these situations if she's been pulling his strings this entire time.
For sure.
I do want a banner. Yeah. We're talking speculate. You need a new banner.
That's right. We're talking speculation.
Speculoilers.
I want to mention.
We're talking fan fiction. So sweet, so perverse fan fiction.
They have that shot, that repeated shot of the rifle in the back seat.
Yeah.
Which is fine, except for the fact that they don't use that rifle for the skeet shooting. No. Like it's always shotguns. And that's why I was kind of like, well, it's kind of like Chekhov's gun that never comes into play. Like it's like we have it because it's a bolt action rifle, but they're always like over and under too, shotguns.
I think, isn't it? Doesn't it have a scope on
it?
Yeah.
It does, again, but the rifle that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, just saying they don't use that for the skeet shooting.
Right, I was going to say when he shoots when he's doing the skeet shooting, I noticed that there wasn't a scope on the top. It was a different kind of gun entirely. So
yeah, it's a shotgun.
But it, like everything else, I think it's misdirection.
Sure.
Misdirection.
Maybe he just carried that thing around with him because he liked having a gun in his back seat. I don't know.
The chicks
as
love
rich
it.
people do,
In case he gets mugged, he's going to pull out his long rifle.
Also, that guy that Bryan was referring to, that the bald guy in the warehouse with the one glove, he also, yes, he's bald, but he's also got just like this little fine bit of hair on his head. And I was like, what is going on there? Like, dude, let it go. Like, it's not happening.
Dude, that is the most interesting guy in the entire movie.
I couldn't stop looking at him the whole time that scene. I'm just like,
same.
Like, what is going on? Like, you shaved your head, but you left like this little like dusting of hair. It was amazing and bizarre.
Why the one black glove on the right hand, but he's carrying the briefcase?
Don't know. He's in a different movie.
he's in a Giallo film.
Like he just came from the Giallo next door.
That would be hilarious. Like,
oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to be in this movie.
Martino's shooting over there. I just walked in.
It's the quick change from all the comedies where he forgets to take off the glasses he's I do want to pull over real quick because Jonas wrote in asking, this is from a few minutes ago, so what is Giallo's best year according to you guys?
Oh wow,
I'm gonna go 69, but just because I'm perverse.
Of course you would go 69, Ian.
Yeah,
it's so perverse.
And that creamy German stuff, whatever you guys are talking about. I don't know.
It's Krimi. Creamy.
Creme.
And it's a forerunner to the Gialli.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like when you consider
German wave of murder mysteries.
That's dude, we should do an episode on that, on just like
just the creamy. I've actually not seen that many of them.
No, like the growth, like where Giallo came from.
The history of.
Yeah, that would
just one episode. Yeah, we can knock that out.
Well, we just get Troy in. We'll just get Troy in for that.
Exactly.
We'll just all sit back.
Yeah, just sit back and listen.
It'll be one episode, 8 hours long.
Of just Troy.
Troy reading his book.
What a question, though. The best year of Giallo. That's like, wow. Like really? There's a little golden year, like the 3-year span, I would say,
Right.
But
you could pick best decade.
I would say 72.
2000. No.
72. 72 is probably a good.
When did Fatal Frames come out? I want to make sure I don't pick that year.
I can't even answer that question.
I mean,
really, because
when you
we've been jumping around the filmography so much during this series that I barely remember which year was which in the continuity.
75. Deep
yeah,
Red.
I was just gonna say Deep Red and Eyeball.
But
So
that's
it's like
kind
you
of
get
the
the
end
best
of
of both
That's
worlds.
kind of the end of the Gialli.
Man, I would go 71. I'm just gonna go 71 because there's a lot of good shit in
Just to be
71.
contrary.
No, 71. Like you had all those Martino films. You got when did Spasmo come out? Didn't that come out like in 72? 71?
I'm not going to cheat and look it up.
Lizard in a Woman's Skin, 71, right?
Could be.
71.
Well, all right. One thing before,
Spasmo
because
74.
What?
Spasmo is 74.
Yeah. I
well,
was trying to throw it into 71 because I love that film. But
we've got a slew of different answers. So I guess the best year. Let me throw that back to you, Jonas. What's the Giallo's best year according to you? We got a few more minutes left. If you're still hanging out, type it into the chat. We'll talk about it. But one thing I did want to mention is after this kind of conspiracy is revealed and that Danielle is in on it, at one point was it a cigarette case or a compact or something? It was like a gold
cigarette case. Yeah.
Cigarette case.
That's what I thought, but it's got a photo inside of it of Danielle, and it says, "You will die too." And then later on in the bathroom, she discovers that, "You will die too" is scrawled in, giant red letters with like lipstick or something. And she's freaking out because she is convinced that Jean it's either his ghost or it's him. He never died in that car wreck and he's tormenting them. And that kind of helps to drive her further into madness and allow Nicole and Klaus to enact their ultimate plan with her, suicide murder by suicide. But yeah, it is this one of those crazy elements. I don't know how popular a trope that was, but I couldn't help but think of, I Know What You Did Last Summer and those kinds of modern, writing something mysterious on the glass to freak someone out. What's up, Brian? You got your hand up. You, sir, in the back.
I just want to throw in there. I'm cheating, by the way. I'm looking at Wikipedia that has like all the Giallo films, like in like the years that they came out, very nicely, stacked or whatever. 71 all goddamn day.
Okay,
because there's a lot of good shit in 71.
All right, the winner officially is 71.
Yeah.
We have a comment from Agitation Free. Hi guys, thanks for another Giallo discussion. Love them. Carol Baker is great. I saw her in Baba Yaga recently. That movie is totally batshit crazy in the best way. Lol, good vibes. All right.
Lol.
Haven't seen it, but was this before we jumped on that was it Kitley or AC revealed where they'd seen Carol Baker? I think it was you, Kitley, right?
Say that again.
Oh, the two movies that you saw Carol Baker, Watch Her in the Woods and
Kindergarten Cop.
Kindergarten Cop or Kindergarten Cop. I'd watch that too.
Kindergarten Cop. Starring Arnold Schwarzenegger.
A movie that I and AC apparently somehow we've never seen. I know that's
really
blasphemy. Yeah,
really.
Yes.
Kindergarten
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, Brian.
We can't go down this road. We got like 7 minutes.
Dude, we are definitely going down this road. Why in the hell haven't you brought Kindergarten Cop into your repertoire?
Comments? I think we have additional comments, right?
I know. Christ. I think that's it. But I will say,
here, let me make one.
Type it in. No, we don't need to get into Kindergarten Cop because we can't because two of us haven't seen it. But maybe there'll be an offshoot show at some point. The horrors of two people who haven't seen Kindergarten Cop. But
now, Jingle All the Way, on the other hand, that's a classic.
I've not seen that either. Anyway,
it is not a tumor.
I know that line from Kindergarten Cop, but all right. So any kind of closing thoughts on So Sweet, So Perverse? Brian, have we done anything to turn you around as to the magic and magistry of Lenzi's film?
You know my thoughts about it.
I'm sorry. Okay. I'm going to dismiss you from the stream. Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry. Jonas is chiming in with, yes, the winner is 1971 officially.
Thank you, Jonas. Yes. The Swedish people understand me.
So Swedish, so perverse. That's what I'm going to refer to you as.
Wow.
Jonas. Sorry. But sorry,
no,
Brian, go ahead.
How does he do it, folks?
How or why?
Why does he do it, folks?
I just want to put my piece of it out there in terms of
Whoa,
like,
hey, family show.
using this as a platform to just mention this or whatever, because there's a scene in the film where somebody's led to be believed to have committed suicide.
Mhm.
So I personally have been struggling with a lot of that stuff recently or whatever. So I just want to throw it out there that this is Suicide Prevention Month, September. So just kind of, you know, if it's a really dark place to pull yourself out of. I totally get it. So just try to reach out for help. Try to take it day by day. Try to take it minute by minute. Try to take it as much as you can. Any kind of energy that you can pull out of yourself. Just, you know, keep yourself occupied. Work out. Go out for a walk. Do stuff. You know. So I just wanted to kind of. I know, like, you know, this is a fun show. This is all kinds of crazy stuff, but sometimes you just have to pull over and just talk about that stuff. You know,
Real life is real life. Absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
AC, you're doing an amazing thing in October. You know, so it's like sometimes like little platforms like this, you know, go a long way for somebody that might just be watching for, you know, So Sweet, So Perverse or whatever.
Yeah,
And then they hear
yeah.
some of this. It's like, okay, like, you know, like there's stuff out there, people talking about this kind of stuff, you know, so yeah.
For sure. And, you know, I don't have it now, and I don't know if you have it right at your disposal, but I will put the suicide prevention hotline number down in the bottom there, just in case people are watching. They're like, hey, I maybe need to talk to someone. But yeah, I agree. We've all been to very, I'm speaking for myself, and I assume because I'm speaking to a bunch of folks who are of a certain age and possibly older, life is hard, and we've all been to some dark places, and we all need help in some form or another. So yes, please, you know, don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on other people. There's a lot to live for, including all the Giallo movies that you have never
That's
seen
right.
before.
100%.
Sometimes
If
that's
there's
the thing
anything
you
worth
latch
to live.
onto. Exactly. You just
Yes.
latch onto that life raft.
Hell
'cause
yes.
It's a good one.
Hell yes. And if you're a big Giallo fan and you happen to like follow the Giallo room or whatever, message me. I'm always down to talk about these films or just something deeper. So, you know, if you're seeking whatever, I'm always around. So just throwing that
Excellent. Cool. Well, next month is October, and as Brian teased, AC is going to be doing the Scarathon once again. 31 days of movies and shows and live streams and written reviews. You're going to be a zombie by the end of it, I'm sure. A lot of special things coming up. Some stuff on Kicking the Seat as well. But I want to talk about what we're going to be doing. I forgot what date we decided on, but I'll post that down below as well. But we're dressing up Accademia Giallo for Halloween as a movie that doesn't have anything to do with Giallo, except for, I mean, Dario Argento has done Gialli type stuff, maybe kind of, sort of. But if you're talking about, I am going to go there, Brian. I'm sorry. If you're talking about a movie that may actually sap your will to live, we are going to be talking about the 10th anniversary of Dario Argento's Dracula 3D next month. So please join us back here next month and walk us back from the ledge.
That was amazing. Just so you know, I just want to throw that out there.
Well, thank you. But yes, join us back here next month for that. But you know, until then, I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have John Kitley of Kitley's Crypt and Discover the Horror podcast, AC, Dr. Aaron Christensen of Horror 101 with Dr. AC, and Brian Martinez of the Giallo Room. It has been great. Thanks for hanging out, everybody, from Jonas to Agitation Free to the other folks who popped in and out during the live stream. We couldn't do this without you. We love you. We appreciate you. And yeah, I think this has been a great lesson. I've certainly learned a lot. Brian, unfortunately, didn't learn as much. But that's,
no, actually, this makes me want to watch the film more now. Like, you know,
watch it during the day when you're a bit awake, because it can be a struggle that first hour. I get it. But no, thanks everybody. Take care. And until next time, whatever that is, class dismissed.